Yo, what's going on, Serpa Squad? Tanner here, and I'm back with another Aquascape. Apparently this is a build that many of you wanted to see. I'd like to say I'm doing it just for you, but someone else has been demanding a pea puffer aquarium for a while now. That would be my wife. Every time we're at the local fish store, she immediately goes right to the pea puffer tank. I've been avoiding it for a while now, but the time has finally come. Let's make it happen. I think this will be the perfect setup for the top tank on the 40-gallon rack. Since it's on the very top, it will be somewhat challenging to scape. I have a workaround though. I decided to make a sandbox to scape in before the tank. A scape dojo, if you will. Anyway, I cut out a piece of plywood and a few boards. I nailed them together. I also filled in the cracks with hot glue to keep the sand out. This box is the same footprint as the 40 breeder I'll be scaping. I'll fill it up with play sand. Yo, it looks like some of you still haven't liked the video or subscribed to the channel. It only takes a moment, it's completely free, and it's the best way to help me continue making content like this. Now we can finally start scaping. For hardscape, I've selected gray elephant skin stone, which has great texture. I also have a combination of mupani wood and weathered driftwood. Once they've been in the tank for a while, they'll be almost indistinguishable from each other. As usual, I started by placing the largest items first. I use these as my key elements, which dictate where everything else goes. I didn't like where the first layout was going, so I scrapped it and started over. This time I placed all of the stones first. For lack of better words, what I'm making is simply 3 piles of stones. They're spaced out in a way that creates 2 paths in the middle. I'll use the driftwood to connect the piles together. This will also add more height to the scape. Here's what I ended up with. It should work really well for how I intend to plant the setup. That's easier said than done though. I have to transfer all of this into the tank. Before that, I have a few things to address. I covered the back of the tank with a piece of black foam board. I also put down a piece of egg crate to evenly distribute the weight of the stones. Next is the substrate. I have a mix of old substrates from previous tanks which are detailed on screen. I'll amend it with fluorite red that I thoroughly rinsed. I added a generous layer of the new mix to the tank. You'll notice that I left the front open for sand. I'm using red flint sand, which has a larger grain and great color. I added it to the front and capped off the planting substrate for a clean look. I also sloped it up toward the back to create more depth. Now I can transfer the scape. When I do stuff like this, I try my best to mimic the original design, but I accept that it's never going to be exactly the same. That said, I made a few intentional alterations to improve the look. Seeing it in the tank gives a different perspective as well. Overall, I think it turned out quite well. Since it's composed of smaller elements, I decided to add expanding foam to hold some of the precarious pieces in place. I covered it with sand while it was wet. This does a decent job of hiding it, but I'll likely need to use plants as well. To finish this portion of the build, I added more sand to the back of the scape. I also sprinkled small stones throughout to add more texture. here's the final layout. I like how it turned out and I can't wait to get it planted. Till then, we'll have to fill it up with water. I've got quite the selection of plants, and rather than ramble them all off, I'll just put the names on screen and down in the description. I'm using primarily stem plants, but I have crypts and epiphytes as well. I want to create a densely planted jungle tank, and hopefully these plants will help me achieve that look. Just like the hardscape, I started with the largest plants. I find this is easier since they fill in more of the space. Also, you may be wondering how I'm getting the plants to stay without them floating away. This was something I struggled with in the past, so I get it. Having a deep substrate with rocky bits certainly helps, but the tweezer technique is key. What I do is lightly grab the stem with the bent part of the tweezers like so. I insert this segment only down into the substrate. Once it's at the appropriate depth, I stop squeezing and slowly remove the tweezers. It takes practice to get it right, but once you have the technique down, it's very easy. I added all of the plants that go directly into the substrate first. Then I let the tank sit overnight so the water could clear up a bit. I went back and added the remaining plants. I used them as accents and to help hide the foam. After that, I gave the tank a 100% water change to remove any remaining debris from the initial setup. Here it is now. It has to grow in a lot, but I can imagine it already. Once that happens, I'll have to cut back some of the plants for more compact growth. I also want to add more Anubias Petite long term. Anyway, before I add anything else, I put in some Fritz Turbo Start. This will allow me to stock the tank immediately. The first inhabitants in this setup are a few Amano shrimp. I like to add these to all of my planted tanks, and they're big enough that the puffers shouldn't bother them. Of course, we also have the all-stars of this tank, 12 Dwarf pea puffers. I didn't want to overdo it, and I think this is going to be a good number for the tank long term. Overall, I'm pleased with how this turned out, and I'm excited to bring something new to the animal room. Even though I didn't want to keep them initially, the puffers quickly grew on me, and I'm glad to finally have them. Like any tank, this one is really going to have to establish and fill in before it looks its best. I may have to add CO2 as well, but we'll see how it goes like this for now. I'll be sure to film that if I do. Otherwise, I just have to stay on top of the new tank water changes and general maintenance. As for other equipment, I'm running the tank with an AquaClear 50 hang-on back filter with a sponge intake. I also have a Tetra HT55 heater. At this time, I don't actually have the final light for this setup. I'm waiting on an Amazon shipment, but I went with a current USA Satellite Plus LED light. Onto a few unrelated items. First is something new from myself. As I discussed in a previous video, I started up a second channel under my name. You can expect to see long-form relaxing videos of my tanks, art and paintings, vlogs, and other miscellaneous DIY projects to name a few. There's a ton of content that I want to make, but some things just aren't appropriate for this channel. If those sound interesting and you want more content, I'll leave links for that channel. See you there. Also, 2 weeks ago I did a pre-release March giveaway for reaching 750,000 subscribers. I really appreciate how many of you participated in that. However, there can only be 10 winners. Again, I chose these all through a randomizer. Congratulations to Dada's High Tech Media, Caleb Pino, Alex Freeman, Giovanna Larry, Aku Dwivity, Mopski, Jordan Vandenbosch, Vamo, Asa Archer, and AJ Kelly. You won! All you have to do is send me an email at SerpaDesign@gmail.com and we can iron out the details to get you your prize ASAP. Hope to hear from you soon. As always, I really hope you all enjoyed the video and learned something new. Again, let me know what you think of the tank down in the comments. Until next time, Serpa Squad, take care and peace. So I know I'm not going to be able to upload this without a bunch of people wanting to have seen your reaction to this. You've seen it for a couple of days now, so I would say the magic has kind of worn off a little bit, but what do you think about it at this point?
I love it.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. You glad to finally have these stinking things?
Mm-hmm, they're too cute.
Yeah, I actually like them now too, not gonna lie. Who's next? We got your betta, we got your pufferfish. Who we getting next?
Salt water.
No!